Have you ever seen an animal change someone's fate with a single glance? In the wild heart of Mariel National Park, a story so powerful unfolded that it still makes hearts race. Picture a majestic lion, the king of his pride, trapped in a cruel, steel snare meant for rhinos, his paws bleeding under the scorching savanna sun. His roar echoed, a cry of pain that seemed to beg for help. Around him, 5 loyal lionesses, their golden eyes gleaming in the dawn light, refused to abandon him, as if saying, "You're not alone." Then a park ranger named Cabello and an ordinary man with a giant heart, crossed their path. Risking his life, he faced danger to save a creature most would fear. Guess what happened next? A connection so deep between man and nature that it still moves anyone who hears it. Years later, what this pride did for Cabello will leave you speechless, as if the universe had conspired to bring them together. So, grab a cozy spot. Imagine the dusty scent of the savanna in the air, and join me on this journey that proves animals can teach us what it means to be truly human. If you love heartwarming animal tales, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss a single one. Ready? Let's dive into where it all began. Close your eyes for a moment. Here, the wind whispering across the savanna. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon, painting the sky orange, when the lion, known to all in the park as Kweku, felt the ground give way beneath his paws. A metallic snap shattered the silence, followed by a roar that sent birds scattering. See, panic. The steel trap designed to catch rhinos clamped down hard, digging into Kweku's front paw. The pain was searing, like 1,000 needles burning his flesh. The metallic tang of blood mingled with the hot savanna air, and he, the leader of 5 lionesses, collapsed, vulnerable. Can you imagine a king so mighty reduced to a cry of despair? But that morning, Kweku wasn't just a lion. He was a symbol of strength facing the ultimate test. And now, how would he survive with his pride depending on him? The lionesses, who always followed him with trust, formed a circle around him. Their eyes, glowing like embers, didn't blink. One, the youngest, let out soft whimpers, almost like a mournful song, as the wind carried the sound across the plains. Kweku tried to stand, but the trap yanked him back, each movement making the metal grind against bone. His courage didn't waver, but his body was betraying the king, who hasn't felt the weight of fighting when all seems lost. Yet the lionesses seemed to understand something Kweku couldn't see. Their loyalty was stronger than any trap. They didn't move, didn't hunt, didn't leave him. But would that be enough to keep him alive until nightfall? As the sun climbed, the heat pressed down, and the ground beneath Kweku seemed to burn. He breathed heavily, each hot puff kicking up clouds of dust. The savanna, so full of life, now felt like a cruel stage where nature tested its king. Kweku looked at his lionesses, and for a moment his golden eyes seemed to say, "I trust you." It was as if the universe was watching, holding its breath. If you love animal stories that touch the soul, hit that like and subscribe to catch more. But then what could save Kweku? A miracle was on its way, and it came in the form of an ordinary man. Breathe deep. Picture the tension building. While the sun scorched Mariel National Park, the 5 lionesses stood firm around Kweku like sentinels of a kingdom in crisis. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of dry herbs crushed under their paws. The eldest, her muzzle crisscrossed with scars like maps of old battles, held her head high, eyes locked on the horizon. She didn't roar, but her silence spoke volumes. No one touches our king. Have you ever seen a bond so strong it seems to defy nature itself? These lionesses weren't just a pride. They were a family, bound by something greater than instinct. But with Kweku bleeding and the steel trap tightening on his paw, could their loyalty truly make a difference? The young lioness, nicknamed Nia by the rangers for her restless energy, couldn't stay still. She circled Kweku, gently licking his muzzle as if to say, "Hold on, we're right here." The soft sound of her tongue against his rough fur was almost a whisper amid the savanna's chaos. Kweku, though pain stole his breath, answered with a low rumble, a sign of trust that warmed the heart of anyone watching. Can you believe that? Even trapped, he still tried to protect them. But time was against them. Thirst was setting in, and the pride hadn't hunted in days. The question hung in the air: how long could they hold on without abandoning their leader? As the day wore on, a hot breeze carried the distant yips of hyenas, drawn by the smell of blood. The lionesses pricked their ears, and the eldest let out a deep roar that echoed like thunder across the plains. It was a clear warning: come closer, and you'll regret it. Who hasn't felt the urge to protect someone they love, even against impossible odds? Their loyalty was a living force, almost spiritual, as if the universe was rooting for Kweku. But there was a catch. Hyenas don't give up easily, and the night promised danger. If this story's got you hooked, hit that like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. So what could shift the fate of this pride? As dusk painted the sky purple, the lionesses drew even closer to Kweku, their warm bodies forming a living shield. The soft hum of their rumbles blended with the chirping of crickets, creating a strangely comforting melody. They didn't know it, but something, or someone, was about to enter their world. A different sound cut through the savannah, the growl of an engine. A human was coming, friend or foe, only time would tell. Pause for a second. Imagine their hearts pounding. The growl of the jeep sliced through the savannah like a knife, kicking up clouds of dust that danced in the golden light of sunset. Cabello, a ranger with wrinkles etched by years under the sun, drove slowly, the smell of burnt oil from the engine mixing with the warm air. He was no stranger to Mariel National Park, but something about that night felt different, as if an unseen force was guiding him. Ever had a gut feeling you can't explain but changes everything? When he spotted the metallic glint of the trap, and the lioness's golden eyes reflecting in the twilight, Cabello's heart raced. There, in the center, was Kweku, the wounded king, his paw trapped, and his gaze seeming to plead for help. But how could he approach such a protective pride? Cabello killed the engine, and silence fell heavy, broken only by the distant buzz of insects. He stepped out of the jeep, his boots crunching the dry earth, each step echoing his courage. The lionesses watched, their tails swishing slowly like metronomes of tension. The eldest, with scars on her muzzle, took a step forward, a low growl rumbling in her chest. Cabello raised his hands, unarmed, with compassion shining in his eyes. "Easy, girls, I'm here to help," he murmured as if they could understand. And get this? It seemed like they did. Young Nia, always so restless, stopped pacing and locked eyes with him, almost as if reading his soul. Who hasn't wished for an animal to trust them like that? No words needed, but the risk was real. Cabello knew one wrong move could unleash the pride's fury. He approached the trap, his heart pounding so loud it seemed to echo across the savannah. Sweat dripped down his forehead, leaving a salty taste on his lips. Kweku, exhausted, let out a faint rumble, and Cabello felt a pang in his chest. This was more than a lion. It was a living being fighting to survive. It felt like a sign from the universe, as if he'd been chosen for this moment. But what if the lionesses changed their minds? How would he face the next step? As night fell, stars began to dot the sky, and the savannah's chill started to bite. Cabello knelt by the trap, feeling the cold metal under his fingers. The lionesses were just meters away, their eyes like lanterns in the dark. He had to act fast, but carefully. What he did next would take more than courage. It would take mutual trust. Take a deep breath. Picture the tension of this moment. The night wrapped the savannah like a blanket, and the cold air carried the faint scent of grass dampened by the season's first drizzle. Cabello, kneeling before the steel trap, felt the metal bite his hands as he tried to figure out its mechanism. The trap's creak, like a wail of iron, pierced the silence, and the lioness's eyes glowed in the darkness, fixed on him. Kweku, exhausted, breathed heavily, each sigh releasing a puff of warm vapor that hung in the air. Cabello knew tranquilizer darts would be safer, but the risk of stressing the wounded lion was too great. So he made a choice that twisted his gut: to open the trap by hand. Ever had to choose between the safe path and the impossible for someone who needed you? That's exactly where Cabello stood. But would he pull it off? With trembling hands, he began to pry the trap's jaws apart. The screech of metal was deafening, and one lioness, young Nia, stepped forward, letting out a low growl. Cabello froze, his heart racing so fast it felt like it might burst. "Easy. Girl, trust me," he whispered more to himself than to her. And, believe it or not, Nia backed off as if she understood. Cabello's courage was tangible, but the risk grew with every second. Sweat rolled down his forehead, dripping onto the dry earth with a faint plop. The other lionesses watched, their tails flicking slowly as if judging him. Who hasn't felt the weight of a moment where everything could go wrong? But Cabello didn't give up. He had to save Kweku. Suddenly, the trap gave way with a loud snap, freeing Kweku's paw. The lion let out a weak roar, more relief than strength, and collapsed to the side, spent. Cabello stepped back, panting, feeling relief wash over him like a wave. The lionesses approached Kweku, licking him gently, their soft rumbles echoing, like a song of gratitude. It felt like a miracle, as if nature had granted a reprieve. But Kweku's paw was in tatters, bleeding and exposed. The rescue was just the start. Now Cabello had to ensure he survived. As the stars shone above, Cabello ran to the jeep, grabbing his first aid kit. The cold wind brushed his skin, sending a shiver that mixed fear and hope. He knew treating a wild lion was like walking a tightrope. Would Kweku and the lionesses let him get close again? Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the adrenaline of this moment. Under a sky studded with stars, the savannah seemed to hold its breath. Cabello rushed back from the jeep, first aid kit swinging in his hands. The air was thick with the sharp smell of antiseptic. Mingling with the earthy scent of the night, Kweku lay on his side, his wounded paw exposed, blood glinting under the faint glow of Cabello's flashlight. The lionesses still circled around, watched every move, their eyes like beacons in the dark. Compassion drove Cabello, but fear of a mistake pulsed in his veins. Ever felt the weight of knowing a life depends on you? He knelt beside Kweku, heart racing, and began the most delicate task of his life. But would the lion hold on? With steady hands, Cabello poured clean water over the wound, the sound of it trickling onto the earth loud in the silence. Kweku shuddered, letting out a deep groan that made Nia, the young lioness, draw near, nuzzling the king's flank. "Easy, big guy, it's gonna be okay," Cabello murmured, almost like a prayer. He applied disinfectant, the chemical sting prickling his nose, and began bandaging the paw with care. Each wrap was a step toward hope, but also a risk. One sudden move from Kweku could end it all. Who hasn't looked into an animal's eyes and felt they understand more than they should? Kweku, though drained, kept his gaze fixed on Cabello, as if trusting this stranger with gentle hands. A bond was forming there, in the savannah's dust. To speed recovery, Cabello injected a stimulant, the syringe's click echoing like a tiny thunderclap. The lionesses didn't stir, but the eldest let out a soft rumble, almost a nod of approval. It was as if nature was watching, cheering for this moment of overcoming. Cabello finished the bandage, exhausted, and stepped back, feeling the cold ground under his hands. Kweku tried to stand, wobbly but determined. The lionesses surrounded him, licking him with affection, their rumbles filling the air with relief. But something bigger was coming, a gesture no one could predict. As the moon rose in the sky, Cabello packed up the kit, his heart light but curious. He'd saved Kweku, but what would the pride do now? Would they simply return to the savannah, or was there something deeper in this encounter? Picture it. What happens next? Dawn broke over Muriel National Park, tinting the savannah with pink, hues that shimmered in puddles left by the night's drizzle. The air carried the cool dampness of earth, mixed with the faint hum of the lionesses, now resting near Kweku. The lion, still weak but with his paw bandaged, lifted his head, his golden eyes meeting Cabello's, who watched from a distance, leaning against the jeep. There was something in that look, a deep calm, almost like a promise. Ever felt an animal thank you without a word? That's exactly what it felt like. A bond forged in trust, sealed by a man's compassion and a pride's loyalty. But what happened next was even more astonishing. In the days that followed, Cabello resumed his patrols, the jeep's rumble echoing through the savannah like an old friend. But something had changed. Wherever he went, golden shadows trailed him. The lionesses, with Kweku limping behind, appeared in the distance, their silhouettes stark against the horizon. It wasn't a hunt or a threat. It was gratitude. The soft thud of their paws on the dry earth sounded like a melody, as if saying, "You're one of us now." Cabello laughed to himself, shaking his head. "Can you believe it, girls? You've become my escort," he teased, as the sun's warmth bathed his face. Who hasn't dreamed of a connection like this, where man and nature walk side by side? It was as if the universe had aligned everything for that moment. One morning, as Cabello checked traps, he saw Kweku standing tall, stronger, leading the pride again. The lionesses surrounded him, their rumbles filling the air with vibrant energy. They stopped a few meters from the jeep, just watching, unafraid. Cabello felt a lump in his throat. That calm, that mutual respect was more than thanks. It was a bond the savannah would never forget. But what would this encounter mean for Cabello and the pride's future? As the sun climbed, painting the sky gold, Cabello knew this story was far from over. Something bigger had begun there, something that would echo for years. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the weight of this singular moment. The savannah of Mariel National Park pulsed with life again, as if celebrating Kweku's recovery and Cabello's courage. Under the blazing sun, the scent of dry grass filled the air, while the distant rumble of Cabello's jeep echoed, now shadowed by the pride's watchful gaze. This story of a trapped lion, a loyal pride, and a man who risked everything wasn't just about rescue. It was about trust, gratitude, and the bonds that tie man to nature. Sometimes the greatest teachers have four paws, don't they? They show us that compassion can move mountains, that loyalty overcomes any trap, and that overcoming is born where hope lives. Who hasn't looked at an animal and felt their soul lighten? Years later, park rangers still talk of Cabello and Kweku, as if the savannah holds that memory in its winds. The lion, now stronger, led his pride with the same might as before, and the lionesses never forgot the man who changed their fate. Cabello, his wrinkles deeper, smiled every time he saw fresh paw prints near his jeep. It was as if the universe was saying, "You're connected forever." This story reminds us that, in the dance of life, humans and animals can walk together, learning from one another. If it warmed your heart, the next video YouTube suggests will move you even more. Don't miss it. And you, have you ever had an animal change your life? Share it in the comments because these stories deserve to be told. Until next time, may nature always inspire you. Pause for a moment. Let this lesson linger in your heart.